Jeff, what are you doing with a magnifying glass so close to this busy Wallingford, Connecticut street?
Ray, I'm trying to solve a mystery, a crime that left a mark right near here.
Near the Parker Farms Elementary School?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this seems like a peaceful neighborhood. What kind of crime?
Murder.
Murder most foul?
Murder most foul.
Between the hat you're wearing and the magnifying glass, well, you've got the look. I'm waiting for the Pink Panther to jump out somewhere.
Ray, we've come to Wallingford, Connecticut to explore the unsolved Shoebox murder mystery. Hello, I'm Jeff Belanger.
And I'm Ray Auger. Welcome to episode 240 of the New England Legends podcast. If you give us about 10 minutes, we'll give you something strange to talk about today.
We're so glad you're here as we search for the weird, the haunted, the out-of-this-world, true crime, and other stories that have left a permanent mark on New England. We're a whole community of legend hunters out there celebrating these odd tales from our past. It takes a village, as they say, and we're glad to be your neighbor. If you've got a story lead for us, don't assume we've heard it. You can email us through our website, reach out to us through our super secret Facebook group, or call or text our legend line anytime at 617-444-9683.
Also, be sure to share this episode with your friends. Great things happen when you share this podcast.
Now, before we explore the Shoebox murder mystery in Wallingford, we want to take just a minute to thank our Patreon patrons.
Our Patreon patrons have been with us since almost the very beginning. We don't have some big podcast network to handle our bills. We work for you.
That's right. We really appreciate those of you who can support us and all the costs associated with bringing you a new show every week for the last 240 weeks in a row. If you're counting, there's our production costs, travel, hosting, and marketing costs. It's been a huge undertaking, but totally worth it knowing people like our Patreon patrons are behind us.
For just $3 per month, our patrons get early access to new episodes, plus bonus episodes and content that no one else gets to hear. Head over to patreon.com/New England Legends to sign up.
We do appreciate it.
All right, so we're in Wallingford, Connecticut, in this residential neighborhood near the Parker Farms Elementary School, searching for someone who used a shoebox as a murder weapon?
No, I'm afraid it's more gruesome than that. This is the kind of crime a town doesn't soon forget. Events like this one leave a stain that doesn't wash away.
Then let's head back to the summer of 1886 and visit the crime scene. It's Sunday morning, August 8th, 1886, and Wallingford local Edward Terrell and his dog are walking down the road next to Parker Farm. It's pretty wide open around here. Some hills, some trees. It's a beautiful summer day for a walk. When suddenly, Edward's dog is excited by something near some low-lying bushes. The dog is clearly excited.
Edward follows his dog to the side of the road to discover a box resting under the brush. The box is about 30 inches long, maybe 12 inches wide, and designed to hold a dozen pair of shoes. The box has been scraped and gouged to remove the identifying label on one side. The best Edward can guess is that this crate must have fallen off a wagon riding by and been left behind.
Okay, Edward is opening the box now. Oh, whoa!
Oh, what is that?
Jeez. The cover is off the box now, and there's something wrapped in tar paper inside. It's definitely not shoes.
The smell is terrible. Okay, Edward is peeling back the tar paper. Oh, man.
It appears to be the torso of a man, Jeff.
Oh, God.
The arms, legs, and head have been cut off. There's bloodstains inside the box. This is the most awful thing I've ever seen.
Edward drops the box and runs it to town to alert the Wallingford authorities.
When the authorities return, they quickly confirm that this is indeed a man's torso, and it doesn't take a forensic genius to conclude that he's been murdered.
Yes, I think we can rule out suicide.
Right? In a small town like Wallingford, word about this gruesome murder spreads quickly. In the coming days, the newspapers pick up the story. Papers like New Haven's Morning Journal Courier. Give this a read, Jeff.
Okay. It says, the remains of the murdered man found on Sunday were given in charge of Undertaker Griswold, who brought them to town, and they were deposited in the tool house at the cemetery. Coroner Mix came up this morning, and it is probable that a post-mortem examination will be made of the body. The box, which contains the remains, was carefully examined, but no clue could be obtained from it. The name of the party to whom the box had been addressed having been erased, the chances of discovering any clue to the identity of the remains or the crime are very slight.
Now, without much to go on, the public rumor mill quickly takes up the case. It's clear someone wanted this man dead. Very dead. And they didn't want him identified.
While the medical examiner explores the remains, people start to speculate on the identity. Some think it could be the body of Albert J. Cooley of Durham, Connecticut, which is the next town over from Wallingford, just to the east.
Some believe Cooley stole $1,500 from the pension of a local slaughterhouse. Cooley was known to have tattoos on both arms, a deformed foot, and a bad eye. So he'd be easily identifiable, unless you cut off his appendages.
Right. Now, someone working at a slaughterhouse would have the tools and the know-how to take off a man's legs, arms, and head for sure.
Now, the biggest problem with this theory is that Albert Cooley is still alive.
Okay.
They found him in Durham.
Then there's the Yalesville connection.
Yalesville is a town just north of Wallingford.
Right. So one local investigator claims he's found evidence that this specific shoebox was last seen in Yalesville. A witness said he noticed the box with the name of the company clearly gouged out of it. The investigator believed, at least at one point, this box was seen near Young's slaughterhouse. The idea is being floated that the body may have been dead for 2 or 3 months, and the victim is a German butcher named Martin, who'd been missing for more than 2 months, and perhaps one of his fellow butchers had a big problem with his coworker.
So police are exploring this Yalesville butcher disappearance and hearing there were arguments that Martin was the rough sort, and maybe this could have been a self-defense killing.
Yeah, but that makes no sense, because if you killed in self-defense, why would you go through such great lengths to dismember the body? I mean, you'd tell police you were defending yourself.
Exactly. By now, police have determined that they feel it's unlikely that the body was left in the box by Parker Farm at night because some hemlock branches were laid over the box to quickly hide it. So this must have been done during the daylight. Otherwise, the perpetrator would have had to use a lantern at night, and that would have drawn too much attention.
Now, meanwhile, medical examiner Mr. Mix determines the body belonged to a man between the ages of 20 and 40 years of age, who died between 5 and 10 days before he was found by Edward Terrell. A large quantity of arsenic is discovered in the victim's stomach.
Oh, man, so that means 2 things. First, this isn't likely the body of the Yalesville butcher named Martin.
Sure.
And second, the guy was poisoned and then dismembered.
That he was. So then another theory starts to circulate. You see, there's been a rash of arson fires around Wallingford these past few weeks, so some people believe maybe this is one of the arsonists who was getting ready to maybe rat out his cohorts.
Well, the funny thing about this theory is that it's based on nothing except the fact that there hasn't been a fire since the body was found. So maybe this rumor is giving the real arsonist something to think about.
Yeah, maybe.
Unsolved murders keep everyone on edge. Not knowing who the victim is gnaws at you. I mean, if this was someone who did a bad thing and this was his comeuppance, that's one thing.
Sure.
But what if he's the victim of some highway robber who's still out there, ready to look for his next victim?
Throughout August, the newspapers run all kinds of unsubstantiated stories. There's one account that suggests a local resident saw a bag near the bottom of a well near where the body was discovered. When they return the following day with tools needed to pull the bag out of the well, the bag is gone. But they discover what looks like a piece of a human scalp near the well.
And that story makes people even more nervous because it would mean the killer was nearby watching and saw the bag was discovered and fished it out before authorities could return for it. In September, a thorough search of the nearby area reveals 2 human arms and legs wrapped in tar paper, just like the torso.
Wow.
They now have most of the body, but without a head, there's not much chance to find any identity to this corpse.
People in Wallingford are scared, and the pressure's on to solve this case.
The police are able to trace the box to a shoe factory in Fall River, Massachusetts. The shoe factory explains that they filled the box with shoes, then sent it to a wholesaler in Chicago who distributes to local retailers. A Chicago retailer put the shoes on the shelves for sale, then tossed the box in the backyard of the store where it sat for months before a mysterious man showed up and offered to buy the box.
So now police believe maybe the victim is from Chicago. There's speculation that maybe the victim is one of the instigators of the Haymarket Square riot that took place back on May 4th. See, someone threw a bomb at police, and 8 people died from the violence that ensued. And though there wasn't much evidence, 8 radical labor activists were convicted. It was a real blow to organized labor. So some believe maybe this shoebox victim was someone who knew too much and needed to be silenced.
Okay, I can buy that maybe some dirty deeds went down in Chicago and someone was killed. And I can buy the whole poisoning and dismembering thing so the victim can't be identified.
Okay.
But then you're going to cart the body by horse and carriage all the way from Chicago to Wallingford, Connecticut to get rid of it?
Right.
That's almost 900 miles. I mean, there's got to be someplace closer to Chicago to dump a body. Plus, the Fall River shoe manufacturer has more than one box, right?
Yeah, you're right. It doesn't add up, Ray. When a murder like this takes place, one thing you do is you check around locally. Are there any men between the ages of 20 and 40 missing? And if not, you have to conclude the victim isn't local.
In the coming months, police chase a few more dead-end leads from people who claim they know, but then turns out they don't, or they change their story. As weeks turn into months, the case turns cold, ice cold, and that brings us back to today.
You can't overstate the kind of terror a crime like this brings to a community like Wallingford. When a person is brutally murdered and dumped in your town, and police have no clue who the victim is or who done it, everyone is nervous. They look over their shoulders a lot. They start giving strangers visiting town the stink eye.
I can imagine. What gets me is if this murderer went through all the trouble to dismember a body, why dump it on the side of the road where it can be found? Why not carry it out to the woods or dump it in a lake?
Now you're thinking like a premeditated murderer, Ray.
Seriously, though, you've gone through a lot of trouble. It seems like just a little more would ensure no one would ever find out.
We can only speculate. I mean, especially after, 136 years have gone by. I mean, maybe the person who dumped the body wasn't the killer. Maybe this was someone hired to do an awful job, and he took the body this far, panicked, left it, and took off. We really don't know.
Technically, this is still an open cold case for the Wallingford Police Department, though no one is expecting any new leads to come out at this point.
I don't know. Where were you back in early August of 1886, Ray?
Well, I'll be honest, I don't have an alibi.
If it makes you feel any better, neither do I. Most of what we know about this story comes from the newspaper archives. We found articles in New Haven's Morning Journal Courier, the Meriden Journal, and the Hartford Courant. As you can imagine, it was big news back then.
This unsolved murder in Wallingford, Connecticut will haunt this community for as long as anyone still talks about it. Jeff, no one likes an unsolved mystery, especially a murder.
Unsolved murders lend themselves to all kinds of speculation and wondering. They really do haunt us because we know these kinds of crimes can happen again.
Please make sure you subscribe to our podcast. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. And it would mean a lot if you'd post a review for us.
Yeah.
Goes a long way in helping others find us.
Thank you to our Patreon patrons, and our theme music is by John Judd.
Death by murder.
Death is our nation's #1 killer.
That's a scary story, and in real times too, we can relate to that. You hear about a murder in your town or a town next to you, and there's no leads, there's no evidence left behind. Where is that killer?
It scares you.
Could be your neighbor.
Because you're like, what if this is someone that's just hunting locals, right?
Right.
When I was growing up, I grew up in Sandy Hook, Connecticut, which sadly is a town that everybody's heard of now.
Yeah.
And there was a time way back in 1986 where everybody had heard about it then too, but you forgot. And let me remind you, because this may jog your brain. November 19th, 1986, I had to look that up, but I was living there at the time. A woman named Hella Crafts went missing, and it was discovered she was murdered by wood chipper.
Wood chipper.
Wood chipper. Her husband fed her body through a wood chipper onto Lake Zor, which was just a mile down the road from where I lived, and she vanished. And then he rented this wood chipper from a place where you would rent wood chippers, and then cleaned it out as best he sort of could, and then returned it. And this murder conviction was the first one in Connecticut history that went through when there was no body. Right? Like, if there's no body ever discovered,
sure,
the person moved to Europe and started a new life, right? Like, it's tough to land a murder conviction, but they found pieces of flesh, bone, fingernails, and things like that by the lake.
That'll do it.
And then the DNA scan of the wood chipper revealed blood.
Right.
Right.
Well, the fact that he rented a wood chipper around the time she went missing
with his
that's
credit
a
card.
Red flag.
This made international news, and you've seen the movie Fargo.
Yeah, is that what it's based on? You think? Yeah.
Well, no, I mean it's like a nod to that thing that actually happened, in Sandy Hook, and so everybody had heard of Sandy Hook, Connecticut, for 6-8 months. In fact, I remember my family went on a vacation out west, and we were in like Nevada or something. And, you're sitting at like a little diner and the proprietor comes over. Where are y'all from? And just being neighborly. And, oh, we're from Sandy Hook, Connecticut. And he's like, is that the wood chipper? yeah, that's the wood chipper. So everybody had heard about us for a little while. In fact, you could buy T-shirts in town that said Divorce Connecticut Style. And there was a drawing of a wood chipper on the T-shirt. Yeah. Can't get those anymore. No one would remember. But I grew up with that. And there was a time where like this woman went missing. And then it started to unfold that she was murdered by her husband and then with a wood chipper. And you just go, oh my God. I mean, that's my neighbor.
Sure.
I mean, yeah, a mile plus down the road. But still, like, someone in my town thought to do that.
Yeah.
It was awful. It was scary. And when someone is murdered especially if you grew up in a small town like we both did.
Yeah.
It shakes you up. That someone's out there. That you think of that as like, it's a big city problem. It's somewhere far away, but sometimes it's your town.
Well, growing up, I remember some kid went missing and didn't know if it was murder, just got lost.
Yeah.
And then word came out that there was a dead body on the railroad tracks, near the railroad tracks. So my friends...
Stand by me. I've seen this movie. Wait a minute.
I couldn't keep a straight face. I was going to do the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Oh, I've already ruined it.
No, I ruined it with my dumb laughing.
Yeah.
I haven't. I mean, there was a murder in Spencer, Mass, and it was a lesbian couple, and one just killed the other. That was that simple. Yeah. But it was scary because I used to drive by the farm almost every day.
Right.
And then driving by again and see, oh my God, that woman was murdered in that barn.
Right.
Stone throw away. And who knew? You never know your neighbors. You never know what's going on behind closed doors. Same with the wood chipper guy.
But you know what's weird? And I'll say this about the wood chipper guy, and I'll say this about the couple in your town, right? You feel a little better. Oh, it was a spouse killing a spouse.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
You're safe.
Right. No, you're right. I mean, it's awful. But
Yeah.
And that's why the Wallingford case is so powerful. Because like if at least you knew like, oh, this was a no good husband killed by the wife.
Right.
I'm fine. I don't have to worry about my kids.
It's not somebody lurking in the dark.
I didn't wrong her.
Right.
Or I didn't wrong him.
Like, nothing to do with it.
Yeah, that's exactly what puts this in perspective. Like when it was discovered, and by the way, when a spouse dies, the first person police look at
Sure.
is the other spouse, the one that's alive, going, "How are you guys getting along?" It's curious, So sure. At least then we're like, okay, you had your reasons. It's not right. It's awful. It's terrible. But you had reasons, and I'm not worried about you killing other people. You killed the one person you wanted to kill, and now you're going to go to jail. Whew, we're all safe. But when you don't know the victim and you don't know who did it, and that person's still out there, like, I mean, it shakes you up.
This story might not exist if we knew the killer.
No,
the killer came out.
It would have had a conclusion.
Yeah.
And it was so gruesome, too. I mean,
that's like mob-style stuff.
Again, Sandy Hook, right? Like, because it was done with a wood chipper, if he just shot her,
Yeah.
it would have just been local news and for a couple of weeks and it would have been gone.
Yeah.
But it was a wood chipper.
Well,
It
if
was
you're going to
awful.
go big,
Yeah.
go big.
That they did. So that's the kind of thing that this story, because it was so awful, stuffed into a shoebox.
Yeah.
Like just the torso, and then unidentifiable, no head ever found. And that's the thing, and we talked about it in the story, where you're just like, okay, you've gone through a lot of trouble. You poisoned this person. You dismembered this person. You stuffed them in a box wrapped in tar paper. If they had just gone one step further, like it's by the side of the road.
Yeah.
Like you've gone through all this, like. And I don't mean to be putting ideas in our. I know no notorious murders listen to us, but
Well, you don't know that.
like dig a hole, bury it, so it's never found. And then shoot, the people of Wallingford ironically would feel better.
Yeah, I mean, I could see if this was a message, like somebody was trying to send a message,
Yeah.
but you wouldn't be hiding the identity of the victim if
Right.
you were trying to send a message.
Yeah, the messess has to be like, you know who that is.
Yeah.
And I could do that to you, right?
This was Johnny two times, and
Right.
he, rubbed
Yeah.
us the wrong way.
And,
So
and it's one of those things where you're just like, and it's Parker Farms Elementary School is it's all a developed neighborhood now, and
Yeah.
it's nice residential area that was once the place where this horrible body was discovered, and we have no idea where that person was from. Probably not local, because
Yep.
you'd be like, oh, you know what, so and so's missing. He hasn't been seen in like a couple of weeks.
Right.
So probably
Good
not
point.
a local person. Probably someone from another town who
we should open this case. I think we're onto something.
I'm hoping this podcast episode will spur people in Wallingford and around Connecticut to just be like, put the pressure on the Wallingford, which is, don't do that. It's the last thing they need, right? They're just, please don't
Get
call
on the
them.
phone right now.
Yeah, like, we got to solve this case. Like, what? But that's the thing about unsolved crimes, is they absolutely haunt us because we know it could happen again. And then you wonder, like, it's so easy to say, like, well, today they wouldn't have got away with it. There's DNA. There's like, the police are so much more interconnected with
Too many TV shows.
right.
Where
CSI would solve
everybody
this.
knows.
Yeah.
You can't get away with murder because of these TV shows anymore.
That's right. You're like, oh man, I mean, all the things you'd have to do. There's like, the DNA evidence, and because of Ancestry.com, someone could be like, okay, we pull the DNA off the body, run it through Ancestry. Oh, that guy actually registered.
Right.
It's this person. And, next thing you know, we live in a time where I don't know if you could pull a crime off like this, but people do still get murdered.
Yep.
And sometimes, we don't really find out why or who. And that really scares us. Scary stuff.
Good story this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, until next time, remember,
The bizarre is closer than you think.